What are you passionate about at the moment? I thought this post one, from exactly a year ago, was a nice type of post, and so to celebrate it I thought I would start another to show the diverse interest of the HN community. Cheers. 1. Thanks McKirk. This post caught my attention because recently I met a woman I really admire. She dropped out of her computer engineering class, took a vow of celibacy and poverty, and became a missionary with a Catholic sect. The reason I admire her isn't that. What caught my attention about her is that she has a sense of purpose. She has a purpose in life and has devoted her life to it. I used to have one. My goal was to make the legal system cheaper and more accessible. And I devoted the last decade of my life to that. Now that's fallen apart and I'm a little lost and it hurts me a lot. I hope I'll find a purpose soon. That's what I'm passionate about right now, finding a new purpose or a new way to accomplish my past purpose. I worked with a founder who had the same vision. Democratizing legal industry using tech. It was my first job after college and was fun building a contract negotiation platform, document assembling API, etc. Learned a lot but had to leave because something was missing, and it wasn't working out. The person who I worked with has the same name signature as yours, Vivek Dure. It would be nice to have a legal wiki. Maybe not to represent yourself, anyone who represents himself has a fool for a client, but maybe useful stuff. For example, in California, you have certain online privacy rights you can exercise, and it would be nice to have a form letter to enumerate and exercise those rights. Or how to fight a parking ticket, etc. Greater than, and I devoted the last decade of my life to that. Now that's fallen apart and I'm a little lost and it hurts me a lot. You have no contact in your bio, but I've run into this with founders a lot, and you need to recognize that what you're going through is a period of grief and mourning. I recommend you look up some books on how grief is processed in breakups or deaths and see if you find points of similarity. Kubler-Ross on death and dying is a classic place to start. It's where the 5 stages of grief model was first introduced. Her version of it is a lot more complex than the pop culture, linear understanding that most people have. She mostly talks about the interplay between the 5 stages and how we ping-pong back and forth in interesting ways. Also, I've found ChatGPT a remarkably efficient tool to read books in an area you're totally unfamiliar with and want a quick download. You start by asking it to give you a broad overview of a book/set of books and then dive into the areas you find the most interesting until you arrive at an actionable framework. If you are into the legal system issues right now, I am passionate about fathers' rights and it's been a huge outlet for me. So many kids and fathers are desperate for help, and 50-50 shared parenting is an admirable and achievable goal. 1. Hey, I fell into this, only I tried to improve the healthcare industry and it fell apart over a decade ago. My tip: be a good person, don't let other people change you. Bring kindness to the world. You aren't God, you're Vivek, which is actually much harder to be. You aren't all-powerful, yet your mind can comprehend so much beyond your reach. Read some Sun Tzu: only fight the battles, including those in your head, that are winnable, i.e. the outcome is worthy of the energy. Be a good person. Stand up for others. Give up political dogma, emotional masturbation, and just be human. My grandfather spent his whole life advocating for better mental health care in a Midwest state. Just hitting a brick wall. But he was content, he did what he could do, and what he felt he must. Time and new life experiences will mend some of your wounds. I had to give up my life's work and its mission. People often talk about regret of not trying, and there's a less discussed painful experience of not accomplishing a mission. If you'd like to connect, please reach out. I believe that the purpose of humanity itself is to advance our civilization. That suggests that everyone should contribute to that, which further implies that every contribution matters, no matter how small. You tried something, and it failed. That's fine. Ideally others have an opportunity to learn from that, but even if not, at least you learned something, and you can use that learning for your future. The goal is not to create the greatest possible impact, but to learn and make the most of the resources available to you. It could be something small, like if you are a lawyer having 1 out of 10 clients pro bono, or for a very low rate for people who could not afford a lawyer otherwise. Find an area/place/people that need help, and then help them. Not that I find this person's path admirable, although I don't know enough about his personal life to feel comfortable saying much more than that. But you might be interested in reading about this one-time world-class climber who left his life to join a monastery and become a priest. And then left that and returned to climbing recently. His story doesn't resonate with me, but there might be something to it that grasps you. Greater than she dropped out of her computer engineering class, took a vow of celibacy and poverty, and became a missionary with a Catholic sect. It seems the only way to make HN even better is to bring in people that Hannah's admirer and to interview them on here. Speaking of nuns, I know 2 cases of admirable women, one English and one French, who left their studies, and one also left her then fiancé, to live and serve in a religious order. At least in one case no one could have predicted that, least the MIT-educated, brain researcher fiancé. There is a new show on HBO called Scavenger's Reign, and it's become my favorite sci-fi story ever. Kinda like watching Planet Earth about another ecosystem, with a strong focus on judgment-free ecology. Here there isn't good and evil, just different flora and fauna and otherwise interacting both with their normal food webs and with human outsiders. It really tickles the environmental science geek in me. There's such a wonderful assortment of predators, prey, symbiotes, diseases, treatments, and thoughtful little touches everywhere. Beautiful art, too. That aside, I can't stop thinking about how much fun it is to throw people off cliffs in Baldur's Gate 3. Simple pleasures, man. I'm really enjoying Scavenger's Reign, but I can't help but feel like the local biology is a bit too absurdist. Or the amount of consistently lucky moves some of the characters would have to make to discover some weird quirk of that alien life. They had been there for maybe weeks or months, but somehow discovered that if you climb inside of the belly of this particular creature and twist some of his internal organs, that it will release a light-producing egg when you hit them against a hard surface. Or that if you attach this tentacle sac to your face that you won't inhale some fungus gas. Very creative, but a bit hard to believe. Perhaps the timescale of how long they were stranded there could have been increased a little bit. Greater than beautiful art too. I just looked over a couple of trailers. I think this makes my watch list. About the artwork. Reminded me of Another World, 0, 1, but with the better res of today. 0? 1 walkthrough. Haha, yay, I binged that one too. I'd give it a similar description, I loved it. I also watched Pantheon. There are a few questions in Pantheon that are interesting to imagine. Also, the computer science fan service, like the philosopher's problem in concurrency/multithreading, feels fun, irrelevant to be honest, but fun. Greater than I can't stop thinking about how much fun it is to throw people off cliffs in Baldur's Gate 3. I was too worried about wasting loot, then I finished the game with 20k gold and nothing to spend it on, and thought nothing of value would have been lost if I had yeeted more people off cliffs. This sounded really cool, so I went and checked it out, turned it off within 10 minutes, was just kind of silly, felt more like someone having fun with drawing than someone really trying to do any sort of serious ecological design. It is incredible and definitely inspired by the work of Mobius, which makes me incredibly excited. Having his art style come to life as animation is beyond delightful. If you are enjoying this, I also recommend Blue Eye Samurai. Both are amazing. Powerlifting. Solitary and meditative if you want it to be, social and uplifting if you don't. It's healthy in a variety of ways, including bone density, physical activity, higher BMR and glucose metabolism, improved cardiovascular function. Also, being strong is useful surprisingly often. Unlike many things in life, your progress is almost entirely dependent on your consistency and the effort invested, with the exception of, hopefully, temporary setbacks like injury. Hitting personal records and milestones feels particularly good because you know you've earned it. It's hard. But it's also not so hard that I'm liable to get discouraged. Lots of people prefer bodybuilding style training, but there's something magic about the barbell for me. Olympic lifts are also a lot of fun, but they're more technical and you need more gear and space. Also, it's much easier to quantify your strength. Progress, I have a literal spreadsheet, and it feels less vain than focusing on looks, not that it isn't a significant bonus. Dunno? Feels good. I'm gonna keep at it. 2 thumbs up. For anyone looking to get started, I highly recommend the Strong Lifts program and the associated app, both free. 1. I neglected strength training for a long time because every time I tried to get started I would feel overwhelmed. Then I tried Strong Lifts and loved the fact that it's just 5 exercises, but provides pretty much a full body strength workout. The guy who developed the program has put a ton of effort into making sure it's detailed and accessible so that pretty much any question you could have is answered. 1. Greater than. Unlike many things in life, your progress is almost entirely dependent on your consistency and the effort invested. This really resonates with me. Not powerlifting myself, but I have a strength training routine at the gym with the goal of improving my right knee pain. I have to take things very slow, increase by 1 rep each session, up the weight every 2 weeks by the smallest possible increment, but looking at my graph this year is very satisfying. This little corner of my life feels a lot more under my control than anything else right now. ChatGPT makes very good training plans if you know what you want. Like a 4-day split with XYZ available machines. Not for beginners, but very good if you want to think a little bit less which exercises you take for the next 4 to 6 weeks. Greater than bad form will absolutely lead to at least tiny injuries that you will notice the latest after a few months. Citation needed. Greater than YouTubers who want people to fail with free programs and ignoring proper form or even teaching slightly wrong form so that they have to get coaches and see doctors at some point. Citation needed. What is your personal experience with lifting? Have you learned these lessons the hard way, or are these just common myths in the bodyweight fitness community that you've regurgitated without any critical thought in order to justify why you aren't enjoying the benefits of progressive resistance training? Yes, I learned my lessons the hard way. I don't know any bodyweight fitness myths and I do not exercise with my bodyweight alone. The amount of critical thought I have put into the things I have not elaborated on is insane. I cannot back up my statements with data. Partially due to laziness, partially because the data does not exist yet, and mostly because athletes lie too much. I fucking love progressive resistance training. You seem to be very passionate in a conviction not based on data. Mental health. I recently passed out in public and had to finally admit to myself that I'm severely burnt out. I had ignored the signs and mentally written off the concept of burnout as a bit of a wishy-washy, mostly emotional concept and not as the very real psychological and physiological condition that doesn't just go away if you get a good night's sleep and a day off. It was emotional to actually read up on it and realize my disillusionment with work, deteriorating relationships and steady decline in my ability to carry out daily tasks weren't signs of a personal lack of interest or effort, but an inevitability resulting from the position I had put myself in. The world is slowly realizing that the advice to suck it up, tough it out, walk it off, man up, etc. aren't helpful. Real problems need real solutions, not platitudes. I'm sorry you've gone through this. I quit a previous job with no other job lined up because of burnout. Fortunately, I could afford the 4-month gap in employment. My heart aches for those who can't. Greater than my disillusionment with work, deteriorating relationships and steady decline in my ability to carry out daily tasks weren't signs of a personal lack of interest or effort, but an inevitability resulting from the position I had put myself in. Wow, this is exactly what I'm suffering from right now. I recently thought about applying to a more serious tech team at my company, given I've slowly slipped into a basic DBA/PM role. But I'm worried it's only going to make it worse. What does the science or your peers say is the key to getting help? You are not alone. I have been dealing with burnout since the pandemic began. For me, it was the inability to focus on the simplest tasks that made me realize I could no longer ignore the problem. Therapy has helped a lot. Longhorn PHP in Austin, Texas wrapped up just a couple of days ago. One of the keynote talks was titled Stronger Than Fear: Mental Health in the Developer Community by Ed Finkler. It outlined why these things not only need to be talked about, but also taken seriously. Sending a big hug over the protocol stack of the internet. We neglect the signs because our society tells us so, but now that you have started noticing them, I am sure you will find the balance you need for a happy life. I feel so seen. And the first time I created an account here to respond to a message after lurking for many years. I am off work due to burnout after having recently understood that was what I was experiencing. People are talking about therapy, and while I'm in therapy I find that it could benefit from someone who actually understands working in tech/SaaS. Wonder if others here have felt this while talking to therapists and what they've done about it. Mental health for me as well. That's the point of this anonymous account. Separately, I have other children who were impacted by COVID and lockdowns, and are part of that's also been hard. All of this is made more complicated by the fact that I regard psychology as having a lot of pseudoscience in it. Feynman was right to call them that, and it took them 40 years to realize that he was right about the importance of replication. But they still haven't accepted the rest of what he said. Could you please elaborate on why you think you passed out or what led up to that incident? Whenever I'm particularly stressed, I tend to become very lightheaded or dizzy to the point where it feels like I'm about to pass out, but I never do. I've had this on and off for years. I'm only 26 years old. Learning about my own mind and how to tame it. I've started realizing that I don't have much control over the external world, people or events, and only my perception of it can keep me sane or fix my mental issues. This has effectively forced me to see my relationship with my devices with more scrutiny. I've repeatedly found that digital consumption, whether it is infotainment, knowledge, or mindless reels or shorts, has always led me to a more depressed and sad state. A recent trip in the mountains without any cell reception even further confirmed this hypothesis for me personally. I try to leave my devices and social media for longer durations, but the eventual FOMO and withdrawals that kick in always bring me back to square one of agony. Events around a romantic interest recently also made me to rethink on how to effectively control emotions and feelings. The other person can do nothing wrong, but my mind can still feel tormented by their simple actions and events that unfold. Unless I can achieve some sort of mental and emotional equanimity, I feel all my pursuits of learning and career would still not alleviate me from this joyless state of life. Learning about the mind and controlling it better has been a recent passion of mine as well. Like you, I've noticed a direct connection between media consumption and quality of life. Namely, if I get a dopamine release with minimal to no effort, my day is pretty much shot as I have little motivation to do anything I want to do. This has led me to delete all social media completely. I wiped all my accounts and walked away. I also leave the TV off during the day, which is still weird for me because I'm that person who works with the TV on in the background. I thought it was harmless, but it turns out, it's not. Basically anything that gives me dopamine without trying is gone, which in this world is mostly screens. The more I experiment, the more I realize how important control of one's mind and thoughts are. I'm now at a point where I believe that the only barrier between one and their goals is their mind. Giving up, doubting, lack of motivation, perseverance, persistence, confidence, it all comes from the mind. Control your mind, control your life. It's a lot more difficult than it sounds, though. Smile. Perhaps you might be interested in the works of George Ivanovich Gurdjieff. When I encountered his ideas, I was impressed by his psychological insights. I had never encountered same level of insight before. It really resonated with me. His approach is not religious in the usual sense. There is no need to believe anything or pray to some entities. It is not in conflict with religions either. Gurdjieff is presenting the psychological and spiritual ideas that are behind many mystical traditions of religions in a way that is more digestible by the modern man, and possible to apply in modern life. His own books are probably too dense to start from. A good starting point for me was the book series Psychological Commentaries by Nicholl. Another popular one is In the Search of the Miraculous by Ouspensky. You can only get the commentaries as used, and they are really expensive, but you only need one of them to start with, and PDF versions can be found online. One book of the series will do, as they all are all composed of one-pagers on recurring topics. Drop me a note if you are interested. That's a topic close to my heart as well. I found 2 books helpful: No Self, No Problem, Chris Niebauer, Solve for Happy, Mo Gawdat. Greater than events around a romantic interest recently also made me to rethink on how to effectively control emotions and feelings. The other person can do nothing wrong, but my mind can still feel tormented by their simple actions and events that unfold. I struggle with this as well, and in addition to the 2 books above, I suggest you look into the works of Albert Ellis. You might find this video interesting. Talks about different levels of thinking without going into any religion or culture. P.S. The YouTube channel seems to be related to dating, but this particular video doesn't have any of that. There are books that can help with this action: Greater Than Thought, Greater Than Emotion, Spiral. I found great help by reading the IMHO poorly titled Happiness Trap: How to Stop Struggling and Start Living. Running. I got the bug about 12 weeks ago. I had never ran longer than 1.5 miles continuously 12 weeks ago. Now I'm planning my next Sunday's long run. 12.5-ish miles. I'm a heavy guy. My heaviest was 270, but I'm down to 220 now. I hated running my entire life. But I finally figured out how to run pain-free, and now it's the thing I look forward to every day. It's also tremendously rewarding to see such rapid improvement. When I first started, I ran a 38-minute 5K, and 10 weeks later I ran a 25:44. I've almost improved my 1-mile time from 8:30 to 6:30. Signed up for a marathon a couple weeks ago and gave myself 6 months to train. Sub 4:30, here we come. I wouldn't consider myself an avid runner, but I run semi-regularly. It does wonders for clearing my mind. To the curious, don't get bogged down trying to train for a marathon. Just run what you can, then walk, then run again. I went through a similar transformation, being overweight and not being able to run a mile without losing my breath. I broke through the really steep climb by applying BJ Fogg's Tiny Habits method to my daily runs, celebrating small wins with visualization. Within 3 years, I successfully finished the Lake Placid Marathon. Then the year after, I completed the Philadelphia Marathon. I was still overweight when I ran these. My goal was to complete 26.2, and I did, yet my finish time was 5 hours plus. In hindsight, I would have been stronger had I gotten the weight down to an ideal level before race day. Finishing the race, even if you walk-run the last couple of miles, is still a major achievement. Don't downplay your achievement based on finish time. If anything, a 5 hours plus is even harder because you've run for a longer time while carrying a heavier body. I don't have time in my life for taking long runs on weekends. but enjoy thinking about when I did. The entire day revolves around the morning long run and then basically being unproductive for the rest of the day, and that's a luxury I can't afford. I began running regularly in 2009 and continue to this day, although I've had some setbacks due to running-related injury. I've run through summer thunderstorms and winter snow. I love being outside in nature. I think it's worth consulting with PT/pros who could give feedback on the ramp-up period, and the load you're putting yourself under. What I've read in my research is that you can feel fine for a while, but if you're not building up methodically you can cause yourself some long-term issues, but with a delay. Congrats on the weight loss and figuring out that you can be a runner. It's quite liberating. I was never a good runner even in peak competitive basketball conditioning in my late teens and thought I would never be a runner until a few years ago. Keep pushing. I also started running again relatively recently, about 1 month ago, definitely not to the same extent parent is doing it, but it managed to reduce the upper back pain I was getting from dev work. Also the mental health benefits cannot be understated. Very glad I built it into my routine. Running has pretty much changed my life completely. Very good stuff. For all of the snake oil out there promising ridiculous benefits, consistently running anything more than about an hour a week is as close to the real McCoy as I have ever experienced. I'm feeling some envy right now. I've tried running, or rather, walks and runs interspersed, at least once a week or more often. But my heart rate shoots up even at a moderate pace of 5 miles per hour, 7.5 kilometers per hour, to around 140 BPM or higher. I'm 50 years old. I just can't run, actually jog, continuously for more than 1 minute before breaking into a walk. Otherwise, I work out every day, mostly cardio and some strength for at least 45 minutes a day, every single day. My weight is in the normal BMI range. I don't know if this is how it is to be. Did you do anything to improve on 5Ks other than running 5Ks? My 5K time is around 35 minutes forever. I run every now and then and recently signed for a public 5K run, but I don't see myself improving my pace. It took years until I could run 30 minutes non-stop, and at least I didn't lose this over the years, but I'm slow. As someone who fluctuates between 180 and 230 pounds, you will see your times completely skyrocket as you drop to 180. It's easily a minute off every mile when doing 5 miles. Hopefully that's a little motivation. I'm in the same boat as you. I have been running since the summer and I recently finished a couch to 5 kilometers plan. My pace is similar at 35 to 38 minutes. Do you have any tips on going from 38 to 25 minutes? Thanks.
Hey guys, this is the Rogue YouTuber here. I recently had a big change in my life. I had a baby daughter. Here she is. If you could do me a favor and remember to hit the subscribe button and bang the bell, I'm hoping to really create a YouTube channel that really gets people excited and brings people the best, most interesting content collated from across the internet. I'm saving up to save my little girl to Carnegie Mellon Computer Science Department. So please remember to like and subscribe. See you next time.